Welcome to Know the Rules of the Game podcast for small business sustainability. I'm your host, Desiree Patno, CEO and President of Women in Housing Real Estate Ecosystem, NAWRB, and Desiree Patno Enterprises, Inc., DPE Real Estate Brokerage, advisor and investor for Amica's Brain, AI for Aging Population, Chief Strategic Officer for Zulu Time, and publisher of NAWRB Magazine and NAWRB Report. NAWRB is an SBA partner resources on women-owned small businesses. Today, I'm so honored to interview a younger version of myself as CEO of Desiree Patno Enterprises, Inc. Okay, who am I kidding? Go back and let's do this again? No. Let's set the stage. In 1990, I got my real estate license. That's 30 years ago. My early professional background is in technology, consulting, and residential construction. While I grew up in one of the biggest agricultural capitals of the nation, Ventura County. Fun fact, they only sell $642 million of strawberries a year. One of the reasons I love going there, because their strawberries are fantastic. Okay, so in 2003, I started handling real estate owned properties for Freddie Mac and several other entities, and quickly rose to Freddie Mac's #1 agent in the country. By 2008, when the financial meltdown, it was sink or swim in capacity of making it work. I was fronting $500,000 a month in upfront costs for 3 to 4 month reimbursements. 2009, NAWRB was officially formed due to the past 6 years with all the displaced families on so many fronts. The greater exposure was to women and many more times than that with younger children. So many times we'd go to homes and I would have to help relocate these women, whether they were battered, whether they had been single mothers, where they had a purpose where they had not worked out of the home for many years. They had been taking care of the care provider for the children, running the household, multitasking, all those kind of things. And it became obvious to me that we really need to do something about this, not only from the forefront of the professionals working in the industry, but also of how we can help, how is it affecting these women? So moving forward, we formed that. And I remember one time we had to relocate a family that had a mini farm. It was in the Inland Empire in California, and was hit very hard. I remember there was one time that I actually had 10 assets on one street. If you can imagine having 10 assets on a street and walking the neighborhood and literally walking down the backyard versus in the front yards to see the devastation of where it went. So during that time, I had to relocate 18 different farm animals. The issue is that we couldn't do anything about it because it was personal property. It was deemed that you couldn't do anything in the state of California for 18 days after you had the eviction. So out of my own personal money, I paid someone to go there every single day to feed and water all the animals, bought all the feed for them. We had anything from sheep to goats to all different kinds of animals to make sure that they were taken care of so animal services could be called at the end of the day. But it was so heart-wrenching to see single mother with their children, leaving toys behind and things like that. So it became very apparent that, we really need to do something to do. It's very different. Okay, so here we are, 2011. Revenue and volume was up, was one of my best years in 2011. I had an incredible year during that time frame as far as what was going on, as far as my personal growth and what I could do to help the community. So at that time, I was asked to be the conduit between the corporate and government entities, the real estate professionals, on why things were so tight, how they were regulated, to keep it very fluid. If you could think about the dynamics of, phrases that you're building an airplane in the sky, you don't have the framework out. The financial crisis was huge. So we didn't have the things in place that we do today here during the pandemic, from, covering 412,000 fines on one property, because $1,000 per day per fine was being allocated to some cities in some areas for every infraction, whether it had from paint to other capacities, and then fronting the cash for keys, and then fronting and how to get that negotiated down to a lower level to where it was only from $400 to $1,000 to $11,000. And then from where do we had to go to insure mobile homes? You know, if it wasn't properly attached, it was not real property, it was chattel. So you had to figure out how you get insurance and bond around that. So these are the things that we were challenged back in the day on a very large scale, very quickly, because there was so much that we were required to make sure that we can navigate the waters, because it had never been done before to the capacity that we were doing it at. So here we are, we're going down to 2013. All of a sudden, all get out happens. My life had completely changed. Banking regs had changed in January 2013. They wanted to make sure that we had green systems going forward. They were trying to eliminate all the checks that you had written, handwritten, or a machine, you know, whether generated by a computer, that they wouldn't return them back to you. So they said, nope, checks have to stay. All right, so that happened. Then February, unfortunately, there was two immediate family life-threatening situations between my husband and my son. One went to City of Hope for acute leukemia, and AL it's called, and the other one went to City of Hope Hospital because they had allergic reactions to and lost several pints of blood. So here we are, we're dealing with two family crises, and I had to turn around and find out what's going on with my allocation of my money. So in February, money started flowing out of my account. And at the end of the day, fast forward, we'll get to that time frame, I had small amounts of money to the tunes of several $100,000 eventually left my accounts, my business accounts, over a period of time. So you might be thinking, why now? What happened to allow this to materialize? Let's go over the 3 rules. We're here to talk about small business sustainability, and let's keep it on focus and let's go through it. So challenge, number 1. Protection. Number 1 focus is protection and ensuring your assets, and that is your company. How are you protected? Think about this on a very funny story, but actually true, to where Wimbledon, we all know Wimbledon, tennis, they actually had pandemic insurance. Who would have thought? They were paying $1.9 million of insurance every year for 17 years in case a pandemic hit. Their payout, $142 million. Great, lots of money. Thing is, they had $350 million, give or take, that they normally brought in revenue and tickets and sponsorships and advertise, all that stuff. So they still were in the negative, but not as bad. Imagine, what kind of insurance do you have on your companies? So I want to pull something up, and we're going to go over some of the basics here first, and then we're going to pull something up called Small Business Sustainability. It was created because of the effects that happen during the course of what I found out between 2003 and 2018 on the small business sustainability, on how do we keep ourselves strong? How do we maintain our vulnerability because we are small, because we're not depth into compliance and things like that. So we're going to take that a little bit later into the Know the Rules Game podcast here. So let's talk about financial vetting. What is that like if you look at from insurance standpoint to financial vetting? So first of all, we're going to go back to insurance. We're going to talk about, do you have coverage in case someone steals from you, internal or external? Do you have coverage in case that you no longer are able to operate? Do you have coverage in case that if someone steals from you in the capacity of whether it's an employee or a 1099? Do you have insurance on liability in case, for example, if someone were to get sick on the job or injured on the job? Do you have blanket insurance policy? There are specialists that deal in nothing but insurance. So I want to take a break real quick, and we're going to go into our website, that NAWRB on small business sustainability. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you all right now, because it's so important that we talk about that. So right now, I'm going to be sharing my screen. So hang on with me here. And I'm hoping that everyone can see my screen that we're talking about, small business sustainability. So here we are at the Women in Housing Ecosystem Report for small business sustainability. And so I want to make sure that you all can see this. So bear with me for a second. And I'm going to go down to share the screen. There we go. We've got it. Yes. So we're sharing the screen. So thank you for that, for bearing with me. So we're going to talk about this right now in the scope of insurance, crime prevention, and employee dishonesty riders. Here you can see right here, be aware that not all insurance providers offer these specialty services. Therefore, having a customized insurance policy helps protect small businesses. Search for insurance companies that offer this service, paying particular attention to how they stack up against their competitors and where they write. So whether you're in California, a very litigious state where like to sue all the time for any reason, to other states that maybe be rural that might not have it, or other capacities. So make sure that the underwriter understands your full book of business, but also for general liability, for oversight, for blanket policies, plan for the world. Doing your homework first is so, so important. So when we talk about insurance, as you can see, it's so important. That's number 2. These all follow with under protection. As you can see, the first one is on cybersecurity. So just as a way to look at that, think about this. Over 34,000 computer security incidents occur every day. Now, this is back in 2018. 62% involving breaches of small and medium-sized businesses. We're the target of small businesses. According to the Wall Street Journal, with depleted resources, small business owners may retain an increased risk of cyber attacks. Small business should inquire about the services, products, and providers available to fortify their cybersecurity. You've seen PayPal, you see all these different platforms out there to have cybersecurity. Well, here we are, fast forward 2 years from this report. Major, major undertaking. All the money, the stimulus package that's being funded. Where is that going? We hear about in the real estate and transactional, to where you wire it and they intercept your email and the customer wires it to someone else. They don't want you to wire anything unless you've personally called and make sure it's the right company, verify the information before you do that. So these are things that we've heard time and time again. But again, this all sets up in your company protection plan, is making sure that you have insurance against it, not only just following through the rules and policies and procedures of your company. The other thing I'd like to talk about is down here on number 4, payroll alert assistance. You see this down here at the bottom? We're going to talk about when a small business opens an account with a payroll processing service like Intuit or ADP. The owner should request a text when funds are being extracted from their account. A simple text stating funds are leaving will help businesses ensure funds are not being taken out without their knowledge. Now, you think, well, that would never happen. It happens like a revolving door, according to the local judge that says that his cases are extensive every day. So the idea is that when you have your account set up and you're allowing someone to run your payroll, that is a software tool, not a protection tool. So just make sure that your payroll alert or assistance is out there, that you have the safeguards when someone else is running your payroll, if you're not personally doing your own payroll and having access to your accounts, okay? One of the other things I want to talk about is that we want to also look at the small business and the small claims accountability. That's number 5 on there before we get to the number 1. And that is disputes between small businesses and business owners, or businesses and subcontractors, are common and sometimes require legal action to resolve. Small claims courts can be used for resolving disputes or bill collections in a cost-effective manner if the case meets the cost dollar limit. Most of them are like $10,000 now. And as a small business owner, you can go up to $5,000, personal at $10,000. So it depends on how you want to claim it. And then you can benefit being informed as the court officials on the process of filing claims and given the court's responsibility to handle claims with proper care and financial literacy. So I just want to make sure that for $50 or to $100, it's very minimal to keep track of your filings to get it done. And typically it's 3 to 4 years that you can file based on whether it's written or oral and things like that. So make sure your documentation's there. It's always want to know and how you can file, okay? So I want to leave some time here to really go back to number 3. And I'm going to blow this up so you can see it really big. Small business vetting of financial institutions. Why is this so powerful? It's an 11-point question checklist to better evaluate the most secured and best service for your business needs. Know before you lose. Find out how your bank, credit union, or account provider rates. Is it a national company better protected than a local or community institution? Is there a difference dependent on your state or county? What does that all mean? So, credit unions are owned by the members. They're insured by the NCUA. Where you have the banks can either be privately or publicly held. Now, why do we even bring this up? I'll get to it in a little bit. But the idea is that your bank needs to be more than just how good of they talk to you on the phone. Do they give you the perks? Are they part of, the service fees that they're charging? Or is it beautiful and glamorous when you walk in there? That personal relationship in today's world is more valuable than ever. Why do I bring that up? The power of knowledge, of knowing that they're there for you. Let's take the EIDL loans. Let's take the PP loans that are being offered right now, the stimulus package, round 2 from the SBA. We heard about the big banks. We heard about the mid-sized banks, the small banks, how we can get access to capital for the employees that had the industry that had less than 500 employees, okay? That is so important that we make sure that you understand the rules where they're going and you have the relationship with that bank. Because if the relationship is the individual, not necessarily the bank corporation, is that individual is going to fight on your behalf, know when to pull the trigger, and help you guide you through that process. So when it comes to the banking regs, you need to make sure, what is their fraud department like? How are they going to protect you? What is their oversight for analyst fees? What are they going to do to actually analyze your data? Is it strictly in the teller position, or is it the electronic position on the back end? Are they going to notify you that something looks suspicious? Let's take a moment to breathe there. Are they going to notify you in case something looks suspicious, whether it's in person or it's electronically? Why does that become such a hot spot? Let me explain to you why. Because when it's electronically processed, there are codes called Commercial Code 4406 that are in the state of California, where our headquarters is for NAWRB. That actually says, based on basically that your checks, your processing in your banks are indicative that you have only up to a maximum of a year to go and file from the date of action that they sent you a bank statement, that you can file a formal complaint, unless there's some overriding conditions within the actual bank itself. So let's move up to the forward here, where you're going to see at the very top here, it says, within 60 days of when we first send or make the statement available, you cannot assert a claim against us on any items in the statement. And as between you and us, the loss will entirely be yours. This 60-day limitation is without regard to whether we use ordinary care. Without regard to whether we used ordinary care. This bank statement should spark consumers. especially small business owners, to become more vigilant about where they're keeping their money. So yes, we go into some statistics down the line, but my focal point really needs to hone in on the fact what we're trying to talk about here is you work so hard for your money. We're in challenging times right now. Where and how can you work? What kind of assistance you're getting, subsidies you're getting, grants you're getting, stimulus package possibilities, and that money going into your bank or your credit union or your personal accounts within your home or businesses, wherever you're holding your money, your wallets. Think about who you're partnering with is as important as where you're getting your next check and how you're making your revenue. So I just want to make sure that we really focus in on that. Make sure you interview your account holder without just blindly or signing, hey, this is a standard form, because everyone is different. Every entity is completely different, and what the regs are within that institution, whether they're national, local, and how the laws apply to them. So I just want to make sure that we really set down that our checklist of how we protect our accounts. You need to understand the protection of that business account. You need to understand where you're putting your hard-earned money, whether it's $5, $10,000 and above to several $1 million, how they're going to allocate and protect your money. Okay, so I don't want to go chew on it, but I just want to make sure the difference between them is very, very serious. Okay, so now we got the 60 days. It's a year in California. If they're a regional bank, the national laws don't apply, meaning they don't cross states, they don't cross state lines. So that means the feds have certain regulations, the business oversight have certain regulations, but there's a lot of gray area. The banks were set up by the banks to run for the banks, and the legislation is in that capacity. So banks are wonderful. We need banks, but you need to understand not all banks are created equal. So make sure you have that personal relationship. We're keeping that human touch to keep that sustainability. As I always like to say, find the person you trust and stick with that person you trust. A little fun fact, my hairdresser, I've been with her for over 30 years. She's went through 7 salons, and I've traveled with her every place I went. Why? Because I trust her with my hair. Took 30 years to grow it this long. I'm not leaving her forever. So just a fun fact on the side, right? Okay, so we're going to continue on here. So the idea is that protection on making sure that we have set up on insurance, financial vetting, cybersecurity, payroll alert, and small claims. So those are your basic principles of protection. So getting your team together, understanding that. And that's one thing that comes into a really incredible product that the SBA and the SBDC, so Small Business Administration, the Small Business Councils, centers, the Women's Business Centers, there's so many different great, they do it for free, 100% free. And my focal point today is to keep it sustainable. So if you only have yourself and you don't have a corporate company governance or a team of experts that'll help you, we understand. Now, when you're talking about 80% of all the businesses out there with no employees, and then you turn around 91% women-owned, don't have any other employees, you know, that number is so high. Having your oversight to making sure that the structure is right, reach out and get that done. This is the time to do that, okay? So we want to make sure we have it. Okay, so protection number 1 rule. It's number 1 rule. Let's go on to rule number 2. Revenue and access to capital. Got to have money coming in and got to have access to capital when there's hiccups, ebbs and flows, inventory, products and services, scalability. Could go on. What would you do during a pandemic of how to make sure you have minimize your disruption? Well, access to capital. Okay. So right now we talked about the PPP, we talked about the EIDL loan and some others that, okay, yes, there's some funding situations that are out there. Well, that is one way of getting access to capital because you're getting it offset, okay? Other ways of getting access to capital are grants. How many of you know that the SBIR and the STTR are out there from the government, that they can have up to $5–10 billion, and they actually, if you have a high growth, high commercial product, that they actually will give you $350,000 in grant money. You heard me right, $350,000 in grant money. It even goes even higher depending on the products and service that you're doing. So the idea is that there is money and resources out there. You just need to go and understand where you get it. So grant money, you can get access to, whether it's for high growth, high concentration, R&D. There's just so many different ways to get access to grants. Accessible cash to access to making sure that you have venture capital, startup monies. There's all different kinds of things. This is not about the depth of that. The idea is that if there's a will, there's a way. And I want to make sure that you expand and diversify your impact of where you're getting that avenue. So let's take a step back and look at revenue. How many of you plan for your revenue generation to be short-term and long-term? One of the things that's so powerful is that when you're dealing in the capacity of being sustainable, you have to look at what am I doing now? Am I offering a product or service versus what have I been doing long-term and how do I adjust? If we turn the dial, which we heard from last week's podcast versus this week's podcast, to making sure that we keep ourselves sustainable. So I really want to make sure that we're focusing on a framework or our checklist. So by doing that to make sure for our revenue generation is that don't have all your eggs in one basket. The old saying is that make sure you diversify your capital coming in, your revenue source coming in, and what that products and services are. So you might have something that's working really well now, but it might be a fad. It might be short-lived. Okay, so what's going to happen when that burns out? So by having someone overseeing and making sure you're on your target, you're meeting your numbers. Okay, well, there's only so many things I can do in a day, Desiree. There's just so much going on. So the focal point is I want to make sure that we come to the point that we really are addressing the capabilities of making sure that we have that process, right? So for you, that goal is what am I going to get food on the table now? What's happening with the pandemic that's changed? And how is that going to affect my long-term process? What's new and changing? So look at it as a challenge and not as a setback, what's changing in the environment right now. So when I went through my challenges in 2013, I looked at, said, okay, here I have 2 people that are dying. I have money being stolen from me. And yet I looked at it from an experience. And that's why we are here today having this podcast about know the rules of the game for sustainability, because small business sustainability is the breadwinner for this nation and will continue to be the entrepreneur spirit to grow and succeed. Because everyone has to start somewhere. You don't start scalable. You can look at FedEx, you can look at all these big companies. They started out of the garage, okay? I got an SBA loan to start off with it, okay? So very cool stuff. So let's continue on. So when we talk about clarity, let's go back to the EIDL loan and the triple P. Think about this. When the first one came out, we all, okay, let's go apply for the loan. We heard in the second round where we had big companies getting it. We had publicly traded companies getting it. We heard to where you felt that that company's so big, but you found out that it was franchise set out. That's called marketing, clarity and transparency of small business sustainability to make sure that we understand what is being transmitted as the messaging to the people who are looking at. So what do I mean by that? The SBA had it under their umbrella as a 500 employee limit. When I talk about 500 employees limit, excluded 2 industries, hospitality and restaurants, okay? So you could have endless amount of employees in hospitality and restaurants. but you're only limited by 500 employee size. Some major big companies that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars have less than 500 employees. But the name Small Business Administration, Small Business Promotion, would want us to think that it's actually small business in size, which is your NACE codes. So one of the challenges of being a small business is not understanding the rules of the game to play the game. So here is an example on the triple P to go out there and apply for the loan in so many different banks, whether it's from a big bank, little bank, where you bank, having those deep relationships. And if you don't, expand and get all the documents and apply everywhere. So the idea is that to understand how that application is a process is one of the ways to be sustainable. So how did that work? They had the CPAs on their books. They had the team to process it, to read the rules, stay up on the regulations, to keep that going. That's what this podcast is about, being sustainable, keeping your business afloat. To understand, you're saying, well, I only have so many employees, it's just myself, I don't have the resources, I don't have the money, I don't have, the time. Time's everything. So valuable today. So you turn back and say, okay, so what are my priorities of what I'm going to do? But also, how am I going to allocate that? And that's relationship, leveraging those resources and making sure it's going to be done. Okay. So that being said, now you're starting to hear round two, what that's going to look like. Well, the final regulations haven't been done until the end of May. So if you get a loan and you turn around and say, well, it's not applicable to me, the rules keep migrating. So the transparency of what we're trying to bring today as a sustainable, again, I go back to the adage where the plane's being built in the air. It's not done. So how it's going to affect you or not affect you. So that being said, we have to focus on how are we going to use the money? Is it truthful? Does it feel fair to us? Are we doing the right thing? Because at the end of the day, because the rules are not written, need to make sure that we can adjust and it doesn't make sense to us. So reach out. But that's just one of the aspects. You have city, county, state, besides the feds, that are giving us additional resources, leveraging connections and opportunities. So I really wanted to focus on that as far as getting access to opportunities for capital, but also revenue generation. How many times have you heard of a business, you go, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. This is the time to look at your business opportunity. You were hearing about how, companies were making certain different products and now they're making they have offset printers that now can make the masks and linens and all different things that they give for the PPE. Never thought in the wildest imagination they'd be making it. And now they can help not only society, help health, help the community, and still be sustainable. You hear about the restaurants, how they're giving back to taking care of the restaurants, and they're keeping the restaurants workers employed by helping feeding the less fortunate that don't have a job and don't have money to put food on their table, and then using those skilled workers to go through it. There's a chef that I just heard had over 5 million meals served in the last 2 months. It's amazing, using 600 restaurants. Be creative, be resourceful on coming up with an idea to how to get from A to B. That's one of the things that NAWRB is so proud of, leveraging those resources and relationships and making it work. So this whole podcast is about how do we keep ourselves sustainable? How do we go through the ebbs and flows? And how do we make sure that we can go, wow, I rose to the occasion and I shifted. I turned the dial. I turned how I was doing things to make it work. Okay. So next, I'd really like to bring into how we're going to talk into the availability of GoFundMe's, all this. But remember, check your hidden fees. There was one of the things that came out today that I saw on Grubhub. They talked about how a company or restaurants had over $1,000 in receipts. I think it was 1,038. And at the end of the day, they got $363 in 1 month revenue. So over $700 was given to Grubhub, and only $300 was given to the actual restaurant holder. So because of all the little fee structures and some advertising here and things like that, you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're making money. So those are the things that as a small business owner, fine print, fine print, fine print. What is it going to work? If you're unsure and you don't have the personal capacity to make sure it's all makes sense, put it off someone else that is in that small business arena. Whether we talk about the SBA, I mean, they would love to have a success story. They don't get paid extra money to help you, but they personally get the gratification. Plus they can say, look at me, look at me, look what I did. It's all about the love. Most SBA people have been working in the capacity for the last 20, 30 years. Their average time in there, I mean, most of them retire out at 28 to 30 years. That's a long time to love your job. So just keep that in mind. So I want to move on to the third rule is that company structure. So we went with rule number 1, protection, the structure of making sure that you have assets, that you save your assets, that someone doesn't come and just, you know, financial abuse from the elder down to, you know, the financial institutions to people stealing it, whatever, theft, home theft, you name it. 2, revenue access to capital. We discussed that in some depth. Now we're going to talk about company structure. You heard about the new loans and access to capital, or you talked about the different ways the capacity is getting money to you. Let's talk about whether you're an S Corp, an LLC, pass through. Does it go personally does it go into your personal accounts for your tax returns? Are you being billed as an independent contractor? Are you being paid? Are you a 501(c) for a nonprofit or a 503(c), or 506(c)? You know, those kinds of things are so important when it comes to the structure of how you're being allocated. One thing that's good right now is that they're actually saying that if you're an independent contractor in the real estate profession where you've never been able to apply for unemployment, you can. But again, you go, okay, well, I'm not a business owner if I'm a real estate agent. Yes, you are. You have to file independent taxes as a business owner, even though you hang your brokerage on to someone else. And the other avenue says, I want to make sure that a small business sustainability, that you make sure that how that allocation is put aside, that you are taking care of the structure, that how it's framed out on whether you can write things off or not. That's where you bring in the CPAs. That's where you bring in your financial advisors. That's where you bring in other avenues to making sure that how it goes from your bigger picture than your smaller size. And you're going, well, okay, I don't have that revenue. Time is of essence, and I need to have this in play. This is the time to reanalyze and readjust your governance of your company. It doesn't matter if you're a multi-billion-dollar company, if you're privately held in the family office space, to the small companies. You've got to make sure that you look at your finances on a if not an annual basis, on how your company structure is set up and how you adjust, but preferably every quarter. So that's one of the things that I have learned in the last 6 years that is so powerful, I should say 7 years now, is that we live in a very fluid market. Things change. And now that all this has been uncovered, and it's made my mission to make sure that you and everyone else that I can save and help, and if I can save one company, one person to not go through what I went through, and teach them the regulations, wrong word. If I can help them get better and understanding what's out there, because we're so siloed today. We have experts that are in attorney law firms that are, just for divorces and just for financial and just for real estate and just for, mergers and acquisitions. We could go down the line. So many different fields. So everything that you touch and see, the government, there's agencies upon agencies that control agencies. One of the things that I learned in 2019 is that there's an agency to end homelessness that controls 19 different agencies to make sure that you're doing something to help the homeless. Been in the business 30 years, never knew they existed. I found very few people that ever even heard of them. So the idea is that we're always yearning to learn. We've got to make sure that we see that what we don't know gets brought to the forefront. And one of the things that I want to make sure that is that all the experiences that I went through, all the experiences that everyone has brought to me in the last decade, that NAWRB 11 years now has been out there, they're tribulations, they're being right-sized out of business, their issues of not being able to get access to capital. I could go on. What makes who we are, and the reason I spent so much time, energy, and money to form not only the organization, but to start know the rules of the game. And I wanted to make sure that I took this time to bring the story out to make the clarity of small business sustainability that never before have we've had the SBA, the natural disasters that we are part of, and all the different ways of having access to capital that we don't, it's like having availability to bring something in, but we've got to make sure that's allocated, processed, and put out where it's the best to help all of us, to keep our own navigation. You know, they keep saying, you know, that the responsibility is that we have until May 14th. That's tomorrow to make sure that, you know, we're going to return the funds if the funds weren't properly distributed or something was wrong in our application. Do you have a CPA? Have you had time to find them? Are they open? Are they, you know, a backlog because the rules keep shifting and, you know, tax returns have been shifted, and do you have access? So back to the uncertainty of everything that's going down. If you have a checklist, where you put your money, why do you put your money there? What are the ramifications to make sure that they're going to protect and do it for your best interest, not theirs, yours? Who's first? Is it the handshake, or is it, do they have it in writing? What kind of securities do they have and checkpoints do they have to make sure that someone's not electronically stealing? If we're doing everything by phone, or if we're doing everything electronically, how do they have your password? Because everything's, you know, remotely shared in all your documents. They go through all your peripherals of all different kind of electronics, right? So that brings it back to the protection. Number two is making sure that you've crossed your T's and dot your I's, and everywhere you think of on where are we getting more money from? How are we going to have opportunities and business opportunities to grow our business? Do we expand and make our business even better, bigger? Do we go deeper? Do we go wider? You know, because right now, one of the things that we're champions is quality of life. Quality of life. Who would ever thought that quality of life would be the biggest integrator right now? Right? Yes, the scientists who knew the pandemic was coming, they knew about the germs, they knew about the impact. But as a nation, as a global resource, the idea is that being out there and making sure that how you work and how you now are going to travel, how you're going to 9/11 to now, you know, we all got used to going through the sensors and going through and taking our shoes off and electronics and everything out of our, you know, dressing and redressing and unrobing and all that stuff as we get on an airplane. Gotta love it every week. So now, are you gonna always wear a mask? Are you not? Are you gonna wear a face shield, you know, air conditioners, all that kind of good stuff? So accepting the norm, transitioning your business to what's acceptable to keeping your business afloat. But maybe, just maybe, it might be the best thing that happened to you to grow your business, expand your business. And quality life, when we talk about empathy, we talk about diversity, we talk about industry changes, we talk about how your book of business, it doesn't matter what it is, related to real estate, related to technology, healthcare workers, social workers, going through the capacity of financial aspects, are you going to have that personal relationship with the banking institution? Now that if you do everything digital, when you actually sit down and meet that person and have that relationship and get it done. So those are things I really want to focus on today about small business sustainability. Take this moment, read what is your contracts you've signed with your banks? What are your contracts you signed with your insurance companies? What are your contracts you have with your employees? What are your contracts? Are you set up with the right company? I've heard so many horror stories to where their companies aren't even set up in the structure that everyone thought they were. Because of that, they've been running on the skirts, right? On going out there. These are the things that we really want to address. So when it comes to small business sustainability, some of the things we talked about, 1, 2, and 3. Well, I told you before, I'd bring it to you now on why I did what I did and how come I didn't see it coming to where hundreds of thousands of dollars left my account. Well, you heard, I leaked a little bit in the front about the fact that I saved 2 people's lives by saving my husband and my son's life. And not that I personally saved it, but my devotion to that, to making sure they had the best care, the best doctors, and that I was there for them during those entire times, to making sure that they could get well and live and be successful today. So that being said, you have to have your team together to get it done. And when I found out the regulations, the oversight, what is acceptable, what's not, I realized that I could not stand still, sit down, and just take it. Whether it's 5 million, 50,000, $500,000, whether it's several $100 million, it's happening every single day. And now with the aging population, with the elder financial abuse, you work your entire life to get your nest egg. You know, we're seeing where it's impacting investors, it's impacting our businesses that we have, that we set up all these years based on, you know, the pandemic. Think about what's happening in that small business sustainability, that impact change. So I want everyone to take this moment to take the time to go look at their business structure and how that goes. So in summation here, I want to go with my story coming out. I want to make sure that the uncomfortableness of the change during the pandemic, if we can save more businesses and help more people, it shows the importance of know the rules of the game. I've got to confess that it took me 1.5 years to come out and think about, do I want to expose my story, tell my story based on the fact of I felt like a letdown. I felt like, how could you do this? You're smarter than this. This is not something it could have happened. The focal point was saving my son and my husband. And I had trusted the institutions. I had trusted the people that were working at the time. I was told they would handle it by the banks. I was told by the people who I had the relationship with, the entities, that my money was serviced from all the different people that had access to that touched the money, that we've got this. You take care of your family. We'll take care of it. Assured multiple times. At the end, didn't happen. So my core to you is, make sure that you have your structure there. Continue to do that structure and adjust that structure as need be to be sustainable. So thank you for hearing the story. And I hope I was able to help you on keeping your business sustainable. And in one last tip of the day, follow your gut where it leads you. And if you make it, you'll be happy. And yeah, I just thought of that. Why? I want you to feel happy in what you do, because I am now in a position that I want to bring clarity and transparency to what is being happened to me and what's being played out in front. Because if I can help bring clarity to myself and my mission and what happened to me, then I know that I'm doing the right thing. So again, thank you. And I want to let you know that follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and all the great, wonderful social media platforms. Make sure you sign up for a newsletter. And if you want to be part of this incredible consortium and information and get to know more about what's being said and done, not only for small businesses sustainability, but for gender lens, for all the different capacity for a better quality life. Please, and the iTunes channel, obviously, for an Anchor and the YouTube channel that this is going to be posted on. Make sure to stay tuned for us and tune in every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in California for another Rules of the Game. And next week, we're going to have Dr. Chitta Duroy for aging population. And then the following week, we're going to have Never Stop Learning with Vanessa Montanage. She just got her PhD. I'm so proud to say that it's been an incredible journey for her. So thank you again. Again, I'm Desiree Patno, your host of Know the Rules of the Game. NAWRB.com. You can sign up there to follow us. And then if you have any questions, please take care. And thank you. And I hope I made a better day for you. Again, thank you again for watching Know the Rules of the Game. Hey, hey, hey. There we go.